Good morning. Yes, thank you very much for the introduction. Yeah, Chief Executive Officer, Novo Onboard Retail. Novo Onboard Retail provide the onboard retail management suite for a number of companies, rail and airlines, and ferries as it happens. And this allows them to manage everything from their products, their price lists, stock plans, journeys, through to the actual sales on board, and of course the analytics to allow you to monitor and manage your business on board. So the last 3 years have been, there's been a real dramatic change for everybody, a real change in the way the public address their retail. So we've been faced with an enormous change ourselves in terms of our software, in terms of the package we offer. We've had to adapt it to meet the market changes and make sure that it's relevant going forward as we came out of the lockdowns. So there's no accurate model to follow at all, and most of our fellow people within the rail companies and airlines were furloughed, so we didn't have them to access. So we decided that we would do what you would expect us to do and look at the statistics on e-commerce purchasing. Sorry, just find my, look at the statistics in e-commerce purchasing and try and analyze from that and determine from what was happening as to what impact that would have for us in onboard retail, be it airlines, be it rail or ferries. So obviously there was an enormous amount of experimentation, both on the part of the customers who are trying to find the right channels to get their products to them. But there's also just as much of an experimentation period for the likes of the suppliers. Most of us, rail and airline, very much so in terms of onboard retail. It's our second, it wasn't our primary route to market. So we've had to develop tools to allow us to make that a primary route to market. The one thing we could predict out of all this is that once the lockdowns were finished, that we would all go back to, purchasing from shops. We're social beings. We love to go out and purchase goods, touch and feel them. So they were going to break those habits. Having said that, we have all learnt a whole load of new skills, and some of that will stick. So this is the sort of chart we were looking at, if my microphone's on, and you can see it's very much sort of a linear scale. Having said that, if we dig in a bit, now this chart is from 2022. We were looking at one that finished at the end of 2019, and a little bit of a curve on 2020. So you can see here a real flattening off of the e-commerce, the uptake of e-commerce. That's probably because the early adopters had adopted. And I think, when I look back, there was, that sort of feeling within the rail, within airlines, within our own company that, it wasn't going that fast, so we probably had time to adapt what we were doing perhaps next year. And then suddenly, of course, we got a rude awakening when we went into the beginning of 2020. E-commerce shot up. We had a little bit of time, though, because of, obviously, the cessation of the rail journeys at the time. So we have set precedents, without a doubt. We're a different world, and we do expect to be able to order anything any time of the day. And we expect to do it wherever we are and from anywhere. And, through our laptops, our mobile devices, but we expect still to be able to pick them up in person. We expect to be able to have the products delivered to us within our flights, on the train, or perhaps delivered to our home address or work address. So what we worked out was that the first thing we were going to need when the airlines came back into running was a pre-order website. Now, it just so happened we did have a pre-order website, so one bit of an insight we did have. So we had to put that in place, get that up and running with the various airlines we were working with. But this allowed passengers prior to their departure to pick a journey, pick their seat and coach, and then select their orders. The orders were sent directly to the warehouse and pre-packed, packaged, and well, I've got a train here, but delivered to the aircraft. And in the first instance, they were putting the packages on the seats prior to the passengers getting on. We were then asked to do a very similar thing. It's quite easy to do, but pick a destination point at either the origin or the destination. Pick-up point at the origin or destination airports. And again, that just helped keep the distance of the crew from the passengers. But we found actually that was very, the passengers liked working that way as much as the crew did. But we also added delivery to home. So yeah, why should we do that? Well, suddenly, if we've got an e-commerce presence, we've got a website, we're a retailer with an onboard, with a web presence. So why on earth not look at perhaps expanding the product range? Clearly, on aircraft, you have restrictions on weight and space, so we tend to use that for the most commonly sold items. Although I do know some airlines that make a very, very good revenue from having those on board. But the idea was, we can deliver to your home. You've got a huge number of people hitting your website. Why not expand your products and look at making a bit more profit? Delivering to home is just like a journey. It's just a journey which is DPD at a certain time. And we also looked at delivering to destination, although this hasn't been done yet. But this comes into play when we're about to talk about at-seat ordering. This comes to play there because if you've got a passenger sitting on the aircraft, you could perhaps offer more products than you have on board, or if you have a stock out, they can then order them and have them delivered to their destination or indeed to their home. So all those are now in place. The biggest and the real critical element of getting airlines back on track and rail companies back on track was the at-seat ordering process. And we were very lucky to be able to work with an IFE company, an in-flight entertainment company in Spain, who helped us develop this whole model. So this allows the passenger to use their own device. They can order any of the products on board. And actually, that's the key thing, the products that are on board. I've seen some pretty horrible implementations of onboard retail at-seat ordering. You must make sure that the products that the passenger sees in terms of the quantity and the quantity the crew see are the same. If you don't, then you've got passengers perhaps ordering things which are out of stock, particularly food, sandwiches, which you tend to keep lower volumes of. So the passenger's frustrated, the crew are embarrassed to have to come and tell them that they can't have what they've ordered. So that synchronization of your stock is absolutely critical, we've found. Another element which we found people wanting to remove was the trolley service. As I say, we're all human beings. We like buying from people. It's another string to your bow, so you should never, in my view, remove your host trolley service. And of course, on trains, you've got your buffet car. When you're looking at the at-seat ordering, there are two options you could go for. You can have the at-seat ordering, where you get it delivered to your seat, or place your order, then pick it up from the buffet car. Very quickly, I thought I'd just put this up. This is something that's, I've probably presented this 7 or 8 years ago, but it was a study that an airline did over a number of flights, where you've got 2 trolleys coming in from either end of the aircraft, and you can see the lighter coloured seats are where you get the fewest sales, and the darker coloured seats where you get the higher rate of sales. And why does that happen? Is because in the first seats, you're probably not ready. You didn't see the trolley coming, your money's in the overhead locker, or you're still arguing with your partner as to what you're going to have. And there's also that reticence to create a fuss. You know, even I'm quite gregarious, but even I will go, I won't bother, because I don't want to stop the trolley, or I've missed it because I'm asleep. So why do we buy? Well, others set a precedent. You can see that as other people start to buying it, it really increases. They're aware of the trolley because they can clearly see it coming. Then we move to in-seat. Now, this isn't as scientific in terms of the analysis, but this is what we're seeing at the moment. Obviously, we've got a lot of people starting to, well, not all the flights are full. That's really why I'm not sure exactly how this is going to look in perhaps a couple of years' time. But why do we see that it's flattened? You know, we're seeing sales from nearly every seat, and that's because we've totally reduced the friction. We don't have to cause a fuss. We can quietly order things ourselves on our own devices and have them delivered to us. It's a more enjoyable passenger experience, and that is, you know, from questionnaires put out to passengers as they come off the flight. And we're seeing roughly an increase of 25% in sales because you've got a perpetual service. The service is always on. The seats either side of the aisle, they tend to be slightly higher. It's not that much higher, but they are slightly higher. And we think that's because they're the lead passengers generally. And also, you've got the trolley service, so people are more likely to purchase from the trolley service. But maybe in a couple of years, I'll come and show you what it looks like in 2 years' time. Okay. One massive advantage over the last 3 years has been the advent of the all-in-one mobile terminal. These terminals are fantastic compared to the ones in the olden days. So those we're able to do, contactless, chip and pin, and swipe. Not that we use swipe in the UK, but in Europe very much now. The one trick that you've got to get right is you must be able to do offline transactions. Obviously, in the aircraft, that's a given because there's very little communication with the ground. On the rail side of things, what we're seeing is if we have a truly offline sales or contactless system, we get through sales much, much quicker. You're not waving the terminal around in the air to try and get a signal to get the payment through. So really, really important that you have online and offline, and you can swap between them very quickly. So why are they good? Because they're easy to handle. You haven't got 5 devices. You don't look like a commando going to the battlefield. One device to charge, maintain. They're lightweight. No Bluetooth pairing between a printer and a device. So, you know, which I don't know if you've been involved in that, but it's a nightmare. Pin-on glass has been brilliant because you don't need a dedicated keypad. You can just put your pin in on the screen, so it's easier to keep clean, which has been good. Electronic or printed receipts, and of course we have full PCI compliance. I just wanted to quickly put this up, partly because I'm very proud of it, partly because it's important to this discussion. Rail Gourmet, part of a massive travel organisation called SSP, they went live with us around about 2 years ago, and we put a cash option in there for them. They never used it. They were able to do everything through the card payments. Very quickly, we're very familiar with Apple Pay, Google Pay, and PayPal. We may not be so familiar with Alipay and WeChat Pay, certainly in Europe and in the West. They are huge. And I would just say that, you know, we all have we've come across somebody mentioning an app, and you have no idea. The next day, the whole world's using it. So we just need to make sure that whoever our payment partners are that we work with, they have like Alipay and WeChat Pay on their radar and on their development program. And I think we're probably pretty much out of time.
We are just out of time.
Yes, sorry?
We're just out of time there.
Yes.
So thank you very much, John. Round of applause for John. Thank you very much, John.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Fascinating
Thanks
system.
for your time.
Fascinating system there. 25% more sales. Sounds very, very promising from the investment. So thank you, John. Next up, speaking,